Hello, welcome to IT Chronicles 10 and Tech. I'm Shane Carlson. I'm here with my co-host Kirsty McGowan and Terry Brown.
Hi, Shane.
Morning, everyone. Afternoon, depending on where you are. With us today, we have Bryan Fratkin from Whistle Stop Digital. Bryan, welcome.
Hello, guys.
So you're in a very interesting space. You know, the whole concept of digital advocacy, and campaigns is a very current and relative topic. Why don't you give us a little kind of introduction to yourself and a little overview of kind of the whole concept here, which is increasingly becoming more and more popular, and kind of how you guys are approaching that space.
Sure. Well, first, thanks everybody for having me on today. Really appreciate it. Yes, digital advocacy, it's in the news, right? People are speaking up. There's actually the current tax bill going through Congress right now that you see both sides saying, reach out to your elected official or contact, write a letter, make a phone call, stop by an office. It's an interesting sort of space. It's been around for about 20 years. I haven't been in it for 20 years, but it's been around for about 20 years. About 20 years ago, it was the idea of either stopping by an office or sending a handwritten letter. Over the years, that transitioned. In about 1995, legislators got email addresses, and you could email them. You can imagine how over the course of 10 years that got severely abused. And so that really transitioned. And in the last 10 years, it's been each legislator has their own web form, right? So, of course, they have their phone line to their district office and their federal office, and they have their fax lines, which some still use, and now social media. So there are a number of different ways that you can contact the legislator, and it's becoming increasingly common, right? You'll see it all over the place. So please speak out today to let them know yes or no on a specific bill or on a specific item. And so what we do as a technology firm is we help facilitate that process, both helping constituents, right, people that live in a specific district, write to their legislator, whether it's state, whether it's local, whether it's federal. And then more importantly for us at least is also helping organizations build communities around those issues so that they can then gather their people to write on behalf of a specific issue or a specific item. And so our platform itself, SparkInfluence, just helps folks and helps organizations, folks, let's say, in a medical field, a national, diabetes or kidney or some sort of organization of that sort, help them get together their communities to write on their behalf about the bills that are coming through Congress at that time or a state house. And so people can enter their addresses, we match them to legislators, and then we let them send messages, whether they're sort of, talking points or things of that sort, or free form, and just let them reach their legislators so that they can make a difference, make their voice heard, and hopefully for organizations, get a larger group together to collectively make a difference and make change.
So
I think. Go ahead, Kirsty.
What sort of feedback are you getting from both the legislators and the communities on how it's working for them, Bryan?
Oh, it's fascinating. It really is. And it's always a push and pull, as you can imagine. I mean, for a long time, and I actually grew up here in Washington, D.C., lobbyists get a very bad name. They are seen as being paid off and being, working for the man or whatever it is. But really, when it comes to elected officials, you need a combination of the two. You need letters which can help them understand what their constituents are feeling. And you also need the other side, which is business, telling them that how it might impact their businesses based on what the bill says. And so it's really a combination of a grassroots and a lobbying, a grass tops and a lobbying, relationship building. All of that goes together into actually hopefully either swaying or getting a legislator to understand what the effects of a specific bill might do to their, because that's what matters, right? I could send a letter to people all across the country, but unless I live in their district, they're not really going to pay attention, nor should they, right? They want to hear from the people that matter to them, and so we help facilitate those relationships.
Excellent. I think there's a lot of opportunity here. I mean, as you said, when legislatures got their own email addresses, people just bombarded them and, found ways to kind of literally bury them in hate mail and lots of other things. And I think it's interesting with the ability for individuals and small campaigns to mass communicate. I think there's a lot of potential to inundate politicians with information, and I think sometimes they make it purposely difficult to reach them, so that one, they can have some plausible deniability potentially in some cases that they didn't hear from their constituents. So they the best decision they thought they could make for those constituents. So how do you guys navigate that purposeful complexity of actually getting meaningful information to these politicians? And I don't think this is something that's unique to U.S. politics. I mean, we've got an international panel of hosts here representing different countries. And even though you may think Kirsty's from New Jersey with her accent, she's actually not. But how do you see this? One, how do you get through the complexity? And two, do you see this having relevancy on a global scale, not just a country by country scale?
Oh, I mean, absolutely, right. At its core, it's building communities around issues and helping those people who may feel disaffected voice their opinions to somebody that is supposed to be listening to. And I say supposed to be. I mean, a lot of what happens, and this is just based on U.S. sort of federal knowledge here, is just simply saying that offices have been forced to cut back or have talked about cutting back so that they can save the taxpayers' money. In doing so, you're exactly right. It's almost like cutting back on the IRS and then wondering where all the tax funds went, right? So there is definitely an inundation, and it's why you need a balanced effort, I should say. It's why that you shouldn't solely rely on, say, phone calls, because those district lines can be busy. If enough people are calling at one time or leaving voicemail messages, those lines get full, and then what? So it's where you then combine the social media effort, right? Speaking out about the issue on social media and bringing the legislator in as an @tag or something of that sort. Facebook posts on their wall, as well as then the typical letters, which go into the legislative pile. And I know that people think that those don't count, but they do. And then the phone calls on top of that. And you're absolutely right. It's a global scale. I mean, our software also supports these efforts in most Commonwealth countries. So New Zealand, Australia, and the UK, Canada as well, where you can write your MP. But the same process exists there. Is we're trying to build the community so that they can make their voices heard and do so in a bunch of different ways where they can't really be ignored, right? You can't just say, oh, I didn't hear from you. Well, we can point to, the letters, the phone calls, the tweets, the Facebook messages, and make that available. And that's actually part of what we do then is making that so the organization can quickly categorize and catalog that information, right? I not only want these people to send letters on my behalf of my issues, but I want them to send impassioned letters. I want them to send their personal stories, because that's what moves people, right? We want to make the legislator the hero of the story. We want them to save the people by changing their vote. So we want to be able to catalog and categorize those stories in a system where now it's a CRM, right? It's an advocacy tool, but it's a CRM where I can say, great, Susie, she wrote an impassioned letter. Let me favorite that one. Let me tag it so that when I need to, I can go back to her with additional questions and hopefully get her more involved and get her. So it's a little bit like account-based marketing, right? Where I don't want to bother people, and I don't considering it bothering people. I consider it sort of saving everyone time, right? I'm not going to bombard you, the constituent, with a million messages to get you to do something. I'm going to figure out what interests you so that I can better get you to help us in the end, and all of us together can do something.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, what true democracy is, it's, we send these representatives to represent our views, and, we need very clean and easy paths to, let them know what our viewpoints are. And I think as we digitize the political experience more and more, I think it's very important that we have ways to convey meaningful and actionable information, both from the legislators to their constituents and from the constituents to their legislators, regardless of what country you live in. And I think more and more, we need these trusted pathways that exist. I mean, as we saw in the recent U.S. election, there's questions and doubt about the integrity of the process and how it influenced. So, building trust is a huge part of that. How do you guys tackle that trust issue, in the communication and the conveyance of these messages, both from a legislator perspective, that they trust the information coming in is from individuals,
Yes.
not unduly influence, and vice versa from legislators to constituents saying, you know, this is factual, this is truthful, this is valid. You know, how do you guys approach that?
You're spot on. I mean, it is the disaffected nature of politics continues to grow, right? People keep thinking that their voice doesn't matter and it's not being heard. But when you look at the statistics and you look at the polling that's done internally, and I say this in sort of surveys of what works and what doesn't, I mean, the personal story is always number one. And then, of course, it has to be in district. So one of the things that legislators will do and is that, of course, they want to hear from everybody, but their constituents are the most important people. And so we make sure that everybody that sends a message through our system is matched to their proper legislators so that that message will be heard on the other end and not just ignored. And when I say ignored, it's simply saying, you know, legislators will come back and say, hey, I appreciate your opinion, but unfortunately you don't live in my district. Here's who your representative is. Please connect with them as they're better, positioned to serve you. And so we make sure that every message that comes through is matched to the proper legislators so that when it gets to them with the address of the end user, they then see exactly who this is from. They can verify it's a constituent and then make sure that they mark it down properly in the system, right? Because if it's not, then they can just ignore it, and they will. And I don't blame them because of the inundation that they get. It makes sense, right? Yes, I want to hear from everybody, but if I can't verify that you're a constituent, then that message, you know, I want to serve the people that I represent. And so that message means more for me. And so that's part of any good platform is saying, okay, great, you give us your address, do so knowing that we're just doing it to help you reach the people that represent you and let them know that this is a verified constituent so that they trust the message that's being generated.
Excellent.
Bryan, it's been really very, very interesting talking to you. And I can see that the area you're working in, especially, I guess, in the US at the moment, is a pretty volatile one too. So I'm sure it's going to grow and grow with the way people want to have their voices heard. So thank you so much for your time today. And I hope your business continues to grow and gets people's messages heard in the right places.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Bryan.